Okay, this is going to show how to take a quotation to a sales order, to an invoice, to accounts receivable and collections. All right, so we see in our calendar that we have Jackson's opening a new store and they want to place an order. I don't have that linked to a particular order this time, so that's just a reminder on my calendar. So we're just going to go into sales. We're going to add, and then we can find the customer many different ways. We can type in the contact name, so we see Jackson Fitness Center show up there, or we can type in 604555 and it finds them that way. Or we can type in the city that they're in. So they're Richmond, they can find out that way. So many different ways. You can also type in the search word and type in F9. And what that's going to do is bring up everywhere that that particular word shows up. So when you're doing it in a drop down on the main screen, it shows 9 closest. So if you're typing something like Toronto for the city, then there's more than you can see on the screen, and that's where the F9 comes in, and it brings up everybody who's either in the city of Toronto or has Toronto somewhere in their name. So very, very easy to find the customer that way as well. So we'll just again pick the customer. Well, you can find, of course, by their name. Next thing that happens is we get a pop-up showing anything we're supposed to watch out for. In this case, we get a watch on their accounts receivable, and we got a new salesperson that's attached to this customer that can place orders. And then we'll go from here. We click on the info tab just to check if they are indeed over terms, and it looks like they are. So at this point, I would probably not take the sales order. As you can see it on here is that our credit situation also shows that they're in the red. Now, what red means is either they're over their credit limit or over their terms. So any invoices that are over the terms of say 30 days, they will show up as red here as well. So if I need to check on this, I can very quickly just click on the Open Customer button, see all the information on the customer itself, including their accounts receivable, check what invoices are overdue, and if I just want to have a look at other information about this customer, like their sales history, then I can just click on the sales history button here and see what else they've purchased or how much they've purchased. So, if they're over their terms yet they've been buying a lot of stuff, we may want to decide at this point whether we're actually going to cut them off or not. Now, F7 is a shortcut key to the sales history as well. So we can get there straight there very quickly. Okay, you'll notice here that I've started off as a quote because the username Barry that I've logged in as has been set up so all of his orders start with a quote and it gets a quote number assigned to it as well. Okay, the salesperson automatically gets populated. In this case, all orders that Barry places are being put in for John, or it could be that the salesperson came straight from Jackson 225, because if the salesperson is blank on the customer, it'll put the salesperson assigned to the user logged in. But if the customer belongs to a particular salesperson, then that person will show up. This note here, this thing called important note, where it says only shipped via Federal Express, that is something you set up in the customer itself. So again, I'm going to go open customer, and inside customer under the general tab, you'll see this important note right here, and that shows up yellow on the sales order. Now those word important note are something you can set up in company settings for Spire, because it may not be that you want to show an important note. You may want to show something else about this customer. Maybe the actual owner of the company that you always want to show up here. You can actually change the wording on this field. There's a few fields in Spire you can have customized, and you can rename that field so it shows up that way. But we make that note show up in yellow because it's probably something you need to see on every order. So next we're going to put a contact. This is just either an ad hoc contact, so I can just type something in here like that, or I can look up, like you saw there, I hit the lookup key. I can select a contact, and these contacts come from any one of the ship tos that this customer happens to have, and it fills out the name, the phone number, the fax or cell number, and the email address. Now note here I've got location of Montreal set. I can switch my order over to one of my other locations. And this is something that Spire has set up for location tracking. It's not the same as divisions, but it's actually just store locations. It will offset all the sales to the proper store. And the user is set to be assigned a location, and you can decide whether that user gets to switch locations or it's not editable. And in this case, we also have something set up in company settings called the profit center. And I can change here from service to production or whatever I want to do. So either any profit center that I've selected or created in my company setups, I can put it on here. And again, that'll offset any GL postings to the correct profit center. There's other videos to describe in detail what location and profit centers actually mean. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and put some items on the order. And I pick the items here by just doing either a search, or I can type in a few characters and it'll show up. Let's put a couple items on. So now what I can see here, line by line, is what the status of an item is. So this particular item has 50 available. There's 62 on hand with 6 committed, 1 back ordered, 8 of them on order, and we don't have an expected due date on them. So every time I click an item, I see that information. Now this one here has an exclamation mark next to it. You'll see that if I hover above it, is this price too low? We're selling it for 25% margin, and it should be a 35% margin. And we see our current costs and our average costs and all that listed here. And I got a lot more information. And here again, we're showing up in a bright red color that we're gone below the margin that we should actually take on or put on this item. Now, you also see on the order lines here, the GL accounts that normally get posted to, and if the user has access to, they can override those. Weight comes from the sales order itself, and then we can also assign a job and a job account to it. Okay, we'll just put a couple other things on here. I'm going to put a package on here. Let's do the INSP kit, kettlebell kit. In this case, I'm going to toggle those components on, and I see all the details of it. I'm actually just going to delete the top level item because I just want to sell the components at this point. I don't want them to show up as a kit, so I delete that, and I'm going to delete single item. So now those items show up. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to press the F7 key, and because I want to check some pricing on these items. So I press my F7, and it brings up all of my items that I've sold to the customer in the past. But if I want to click on order items only, I only see the items I've got in this order. So there's all the times I sold those kettlebell kits to them. And I can see my unit price here that I've sold them. So if they're talking about asking about price and they say, look, I've paid less for them in the past, you can see that they're right here, what the prices you sold them for. Now in this case, because it was on a kit, they had 0 sell prices. But now I want to refresh those prices, so I can hit the refresh all, and then all those prices get refreshed and the proper sell prices get put on them. Okay, and if I go back to F7 again, I can take the fill order items only tag off, and I can start asking about some other product that he's bought in the past. We can ask him, how's your Inspire dumbbells and the Swiss balls? I can select those. I can hold the control key down and go add to order, and those 2 items get actually added right to the order. There's the 2 items that got put on there. So a very easy way to look at customer history and then add those right to the order. Okay, at the bottom here we show the freight got added automatically. Basically what we've done is we've told it that there's a 5% freight charge with a minimum of $5 because the order started off, you saw in the beginning, of $5 only, and to a maximum freight of $50. Then we see here now we've got a GP of 45%, and we got a profit of $508. If we're happy with that, we can also here give them an overall discount as opposed to the line by line discount. And then if we're done with that and the order is ready to process, then we go ahead and click on process, And it now tells us that it can't be processed because it's a quote. So I have to first take this order, or I can save this order as a quote. So telling us again we have uh, items that are under the margin, and tells us now also that there's notes for this customer. So I can go ahead and view those again. We saw them as we loaded this customer onto the order, but again it tells us about watching their credit. And it tells us also that there are other open sales orders for this customer because that's in red. So I can double check here to make sure that I'm not repeating an order in here. So if I want to search for purchase order number, I can see what the PO that this was actually created on, or where this PO came from, and make sure, just like I said, haven't duplicated the order. If I'm happy with everything, I take it from an open quote to an open sales orders, and it now drops that down to $119 as you saw there because everything got back ordered, so we're short on everything. So if I want to know what the value of that order by order quantity, I can click that button at the top here and I see what the actual value of the order is there too. But they want a few items shipped to them, but they want the rest requisitioned and then shipped to them. I can do that by simply clicking on the requisition button now, and there's all the items that were short and all their quantities. It even shows the items we are able to ship and with a zero quantity there. So you could decide to actually order those from the supplier at the same time, but you don't have to at this point. You can leave those off at zero. So I'm going to process that, and what happens there is that a purchase order got generated for all the shortages. In this case, looks like we created 3 different POs because they're different vendors, because they'll combine the items that are from the same vendor onto the same purchase order number. And then what you'll see on the sale, gotta approve the price, so I saved it there. If I go over to the right, you'll see here it actually got stamped with the purchase order number on it that is linked to this. So I can come back here at any time and check this to see exactly what PO I'm expecting those items on. Notice also that when I did turn that from a quote to a sales order, that it dropped my freight down to $5.05 because it's only able to ship a portion of it, so it's only going to charge a portion of the freight. So I'm going to go ahead and process this order now. It's telling me again that they're over the limit. If I have access, it'll allow me to do an override. If I don't have access and I click that override button, it's going to ask me to key or have somebody else key in their login and password to be able to override it. Again, we're approving those under margins. And then we're going to print a packing slip or a pick slip, whichever you use for that particular company. So then I get a packing slip here, and the order itself turns into a processed order. So that was a quote. So we'll look down at our last quote we did here. That was that'll be this one here. Oh, we're in below it. Okay, this is the one here. Now note that the quote got changed to a queue, or from a queue order, quote order, to a full order number here. Now, in company settings, you can decide whether you keep that quote number or you are given a new quote number, a new order number when you actually turn it into a sales order. So here's our order that has been processed, and it's got the process stamp on it there. Now, what I can do here if I'm the shipper is I can create myself a filter so I only see the processed orders. So I can select status is processed. So now I'm just seeing my processed orders here. Now I can take that Jackson order and I can just hit the, go into it, add in the extra information here. Like for instance, I may want to maybe because I got so much back order, I'm just give them free freight on this one. Maybe I noticed that I do have stock or don't have stock on something. I can change the stock quantities on that. Add in extra information on the info tab, like the carrier name, date we shipped it, and the tracking number. And then I can go ahead and hit the ship button. Again, we're getting checked all along the way where the approved pricing, and then we get the packing slip or the pick pack slip to put that into the box with the product. Okay, so once that's done, it goes into a ship state. So of course I'm no longer seeing them. And there are all of my shipped orders. And the last one is this one at the top. And if I want to go in here and go ahead and invoice to the customer, I simply click the invoice button. Again, we're always being warned about that pricing. And then what I can do here now is just put it on their account. And we invoice. Now we can email the invoice from here by clicking on the email button, or in my case, I'm just going to preview it, and I get a copy of the actual invoice. Now, the rest of the product is still there, but of course, it's no longer in a ship status. It's gone into an open status again. So we'll just sort this by order date, get our order at the top here. And now I continue to fulfill all of these orders until I've got everything shipped. So you notice all the things I've already been shipped off this order has left off this order, and now I'm down to a 0 order. And then once I've received product, I can go ahead and start shipping them. And I can do that automatically because when I go into an order after I've received product, there'll be a note across the top that says, would you like to ship stock that is now available? And it'll do that automatically. To actually show that, let's just close this order and let's go into inventory. And I'm just going to go up here to type kettle. Ket. Let's go. We can see we can do an asterisk for a wildcard search. So I'm just going to receive some of these kettlebells. So I can just do an adjustment. I would normally do a PO for this, but if you're just adjusting orders, notice what I did there is I highlighted all those items that brought into an adjustment. So we're going to receive 100 of these and 45 of these, 45 of these, 67 of these, 123 of these, whatever there, and whatever here. So now we're going to go ahead and post that. It does an inventory adjustment. I won't print. Oh, sure, we'll print it, preview it, and you'll see here that all the receipts we just did, $19,000 worth of receiving. We just close that now. But now we're going to go do is we're going to go back into that sales order to Jackson 225. And then we've got view notes. We'll dismiss that. And then when you notice here across the top, it says inventory is available to commit to this order. Would you like to ship available? So I say, yes, I want to do that. And then all the items that I had brought in stock for are now, I can now ship. Okay. Okay, now we're going to take another order from the customer, same customer. And we're going to put in their order or their name. And this time around, we're noticing the credit again, and we're not going to let it go any further. So we're being told to watch the credit here. So we're going to click OK. And then we are going to go have a look at the information. We see they got some over terms. So we're going to want to call the customer. So we're going to give them a call. Then we're going to go open customer. And we're going to talk to the person in charge. And we're going to tell them, look, we got some overdue invoices here, we need payment on them. So they tell us, okay, well, let's go ahead and pay some of these, but I'm short of a couple invoices. So can you send me a copy of the $2,700 one here, and then also a statement? So I highlight that, hit the print button, and I choose customer statement and invoice. And I can just click on email here, but I'm just going to preview both of these to myself. And then we're going to have a look at those. So there's the invoice that they were short of. And then there's their account statement. So they got both of them in hand. No reason to not be able to pay now. And they say, okay, good, got it. Let's just go ahead and print all these out. And we're going to pay them. Hit the payment button. And we're going to select to pay by credit card because they're giving us a card over the phone. And we're going to post and review. So it's showing it's going to get posted to the GL account for Visa. And I'm going to send them a statement. of a payment, and I'm just going to email that again, and that gets emailed off to them, and it shows exactly what they've just paid. And then now I'm back to accounts receivable, and they're now down to not owing as much. We can go ahead and take the order from here. So that's the whole step of basically taking a customer's order, following it all through to accounting, and being able to make sure you keep on top of customers that way. Notice you did that all without going into separate modules to do so.